The first book I will recommend is 1984 by George Orwell, and I recommend it for every kind of reader. If you're new to reading, if you're younger, if you're older, if you have experience with literary fiction, other genres of fiction, it's kind of the panacea book. It applies to everybody on strength of its merits and on strength of its cultural importance, which is really the reason that I do recommend it for everybody as a jumping off point, because everybody has read it pretty much. If you have not read it, when you read it, you will be a member of a large, we'll call it a community of people, a large group of people who have read it. So you will have people to talk to about it in your personal life, as well as an infinity of resources online of people discussing it, talking about it. It has high literary merit. It's a great piece of fiction that's compelling just on a plot level. You can read it as entertainment. It has many layers of meaning and political interpretations that can be brought to it. It's claimed as a primary document for every single conceivable point on the political ideology chart. I mean, everybody thinks that they have the true interpretation. So regardless of your ideological disposition, you are likely to find material there that speaks to you. When you read it, you will also now have a little bit of a greater insight into the culture war that rages around the book. You could also read either of the other two great big honkin' dystopias that everybody reads, Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World. 1984 is the best among them. I want to offer one disclaimer before we move on, which is if you're a young reader, I encourage you to read these books. None of them are YA, but you should feel completely entitled and able to read any three of these, especially the first two. And you shouldn't be intimidated by reading adult fiction. Don't limit yourself to reading only YA. Number 2 is The Stars, My Destination by Alfred Bester. The original title was Tiger, Tiger. I recommend it because, like the other two books on this list, it's short. I think it's only around 200 pages long. It's very exciting. It's kind of a science fiction retelling of The Count of Monte Cristo, if you're familiar with that story. It's a revenge story about a guy who gets stranded on a drifting, derelict spaceship, and another spacecraft comes by, notices him, and leaves him to die. And he finds in this moment of crisis that he has an extraordinary ability. And that sounds very vague, but it's a very exciting book that packs in a lot that the science fiction genre has to offer into one fairly concise and interesting and compelling book. One of the reasons I love this book is one of the reasons why I love science fiction so much is because over the skeleton of the plot, it overlays a density of ideas that is typically unmatched in other genres. So you get the excitement of the story itself, and you get the attachment of the characters and seeing them develop, and you also are exposed to new perspectives or new things to think about the universe or the world that is distinct to that particular book. The Stars, My Destination, for how long it is nearly peerless in the amount of ideas and the quality of ideas, the fascination of the ideas that it has on offer. And a lot of them were quite prescient. It was written in the early 1950s, and despite that, it kind of presaged a lot of stuff that was to come, a lot of kind of the new, what's called new wave science fiction, cerebral, psychedelic science fiction. It was a forerunner of cyberpunk. There's transhumanism in it. There's just like all kinds of bizarro stuff that you would not anticipate being in a book from 1950, whatever. I think it was 52 or something. Because of that, it is insulated against the vicissitudes of time. It has aged sublimely well. I read the book in one sitting when I did read it, and it has stuck with me since. And like 1984, you can read it purely as lizard brain entertainment of watching this guy exact his revenge. And also, it's historically very important as a book. It's considered one of the best science fiction books ever. It was influential on a whole litany of important authors in science fiction. And it simply kicks ass. The third book is Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, and I include this on the list for readers who maybe have a few more books under their belt, and you want to get a taste for the highs of science fiction, of quote-unquote literary science fiction. Lem was Polish. Because he is Polish, he wrote without the same palette of genre tropes as a lot of British and American science fiction authors did and do. So it has a different feel. It's about a planet that's covered by a massive alien that's gelatinous. It's like a big ocean, and the alien is clearly intelligent. It's not known what its level of self-awareness is or its awareness of the human scientists that are studying it on an orbiting space station. A new researcher arrives at the station to take up residence on the heels of a more established scientist committing suicide. And the three men that live on the space station encounter this strange phenomenon whereby Solaris, the planet, the alien on the planet, manifests not hallucinations, but corporeal iterations of people from their pasts that can walk around or physical creatures and maintain a certain amount of memory held over from the actual people's lives. It's on this list because it will give you a sense of what the genre can do when it's really firing on all cylinders. It has a depth of philosophical sophistication that even among other philosophical science fiction books is more potent. It asks truly huge questions about the nature of life in the universe, our place in it. It's an overused phrase, but it has a deep sense of existential dread, actual existential dread on an individual level and on a species level. It is not as easy of a read as the other two books, but if you want to jump in the deep end with science fiction, I recommend that as a good starting point. There are two other booktubers who are members of the Science Fiction Alliance who are releasing a video along these same lines simultaneously with this one. Michael at Fit to Be Read and Bridger at the Library Ladder. There will be links to their videos in the description below if you would like more ideas. And they have limited themselves to 3 picks as well. And I hope that that format helps you to feel less overwhelmed. Thanks for watching.